M3GAN is the brand new Blumhouse film that hits theaters exclusively on January 6th. The film is about Gemma, played by Allison Williams, who's also an executive producer on the movie. She basically creates toys, and she hits kind of a rut in her making her toy career. And this is what happens. Her niece, played by Caddy, is left alone. Her parents die in a car crash, and Gemma takes full guardianship of her niece, and she gets inspired to make this doll, M3GAN, who was physically performed by Annie Donald and voiced by Jenna Davis, who's supposed to protect Katie in all physical and emotional distress. Supposed to be. The film is 1 hour and 42 minutes and is PG-13. Welcome back to a brand new movie review here in Max Talks Movies. We're talking about M3GAN, which is a very hot topic going around, at least the movie circle, the last couple of weeks. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, movie rankings, and a box office breakdown show every single week. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Comment down below. First of all, have you seen this movie? If you have not checked this one out, tell me, are you going to check this one out in theaters? Are you waiting for this to be a streaming movie? What are your thoughts on that? And also, if you have seen this movie, tell me, did you have a fun time with it? Did you not like it? Do you want to see more films possibly to make this a franchise? I'd love to hear your thoughts, non-spoilers, in the comment section down below. And also, please like the video, guys, a thumbs up button. That's how you support this channel. So a little bit of some history too in the movie. The movie is produced and co-written story-wise by James Wan, and he reteams with Akilah Cooper, who also co-wrote *Malignant* with him last year. So once again, another produced James Wan. Also, Ron created the story. I had a blast with *Malignant*. Really liked that movie a ton. And the promoting and the marketing of this movie has been really fantastic. But I wasn't sure, again, how this movie would go. All that backstory I liked. I'm a huge fan of Allison Williams since Get Out. Her also first producing credit in her career. So I was very actually excited to see this movie. And once again, the biggest positive that I want to say about this movie is that this movie has a lot of good messages, and I'll get to them in a second. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't take itself too seriously. And one of the reasons why that is the case, that this movie really is a horror comedy movie, which is just something you don't see that much, especially from Blumhouse at all. I think when most horror films are a lot of the time unintentionally funny when not done right. And this movie, well, yes, sometimes can be unintentionally funny. For the most part, the comedy is very much intentional, which I had tons of fun with. I was kind of shocked how much I was laughing throughout this film, especially towards that second act portion when M3GAN kind of becomes a part of this family, basically. There are tons of laughs that there's actually things that they don't even show in the trailer that are so funny. My theater was definitely laughing a lot when M3GAN does something to help Katie go to sleep. I thought that was very funny. If you know what I'm talking about, you know how funny that was. But the movie doesn't just take itself too seriously whatsoever. I do feel like most of these types of films want to have all of these messaging and take the movie as is. This movie has messaging in it, which I found was really good, but the actual comedy of it is kind of why I had the most fun watching this movie. And overall, as I just said, it's tons of fun to watch this movie. It is probably one of the most fun experiences you'll have watching a horror film all year long as we're heading into 2023. There was so much fun to be had here. I think these types of movies just don't want to have fun. And I love that this movie feels fresh, very similar to *Malignant*, is fresh, wants to have some fun and not to take itself too seriously, which I had just really tons of fun with. All starts with a really good cast as well. As Allison Williams is fantastic in the movie. Really thought she was so underrated, I guess, in Get Out. And a lot of other actors, including Kaluuya, and a lot of that cast deserve a lot of the credit, but she plays one of the most crucial characters in Get Out. And she just hasn't had a ton of work since that movie. I don't know if that was a personal choice or just career-wise. But she's also an executive producer on this film, which I said it's her first movie producer credit. She was really good in this movie, and especially selling someone who wants to be a career woman. She doesn't really see any other thing except her career, which I found a really good dynamic with her niece Katie, played by Violet McGraw, who I've seen in other stuff like The Haunting of Hill House and playing young Elena in Black Widow. Funny enough, she is the sister of Madeline McGraw, who was just in Black Phone a couple months ago. So what a tandem of sisters there for Blumhouse here in the last couple of months. So she's also good. And the movie does have to come down to Violet McGraw buying, Katie buying that M3GAN is not more than just a doll and a toy. More that it has to be a friend and at times a person. And I think McGraw sells that really good. Obviously, the M3GAN performance, there's a lot to it, but I think the thing that stands out is the physical performance, and it's shockingly by a professional dancer who's a child actor, Amy Donald, who does a fantastic job, because this whole character, yes, it has the robotic voice played by Jenna Davis, and Davis does a good job voicing the character. But what is more creepy about the character is just the look, but one of the creepier aspects of the movie is just the movements of this character, and that's actually what makes the character creepy. I know a lot of people are kind of thinking about the doll being creepy because of the look. It's obviously not a doll that I would give to someone, but the whole thing about the doll is that it's the movements that really brings this character to life and makes it a lot more interesting. I think if it was just a doll robotically walking around, it wouldn't be that interesting, because it kind of the actress Donald does a perfect job at encapsulating both her being a robot kind of and a person at the same time. That's what kind of off-putting is that at times, sometimes you can't even tell if this is a real doll or not, and that's what kind of gets to the creepy aspect of the movie. Another part, there's a lot of great commentary on both social media and also like parenting, which I found was really interesting for both. Obviously, the social media aspect, the fact that we always need to entertain ourselves with these, technology. And I think the movie does a really good job talking about that. But also parenting and also finding real relationships. Even if you talk to someone online or have his doll, it's still not a real relationship. And I think the dynamic of a career woman having to take care of a daughter who's very, addicted, I guess, to technology, and not building those relationships. She was homeschooled. Now she has a doll that she thinks is more than a doll. I found that dynamic is actually what makes the movie work. Obviously, the M3GAN doll itself works, but the dynamic between Williams and McGraw really brings this movie together. I can definitely see why a lot of people wanted this to be rated R, and there's a rated R cut of this movie that I heard rumored they could release on streaming. But I actually thought it was actually a pretty oppressive PG-13. It felt like a very edgy PG-13. And I felt like a lot of the action was actually done very well. And the way they use this technology is actually very smart. And at times, yes, the movie is very ridiculous, but there are aspects of the movie that I feel like in real life, people would make these type of decisions. So that's what I thought my positives are. There's always some negatives, but my biggest negatives that I really did not like the first 20, 25 minutes of the movie. And I was like, oh, this is really going to be bad, because that was what I was thinking this movie could be. It could be one of the worst movies of the year or just a fun B movie. I'll get into my overall thoughts later, but it is the first 20, 30 minutes of this movie, I was really afraid, because M3GAN's not really in for most of the first act of the movie. And it was not very good. It was boring. You didn't care about the characters. And then literally the movie just has so much more life once M3GAN obviously is put into the situation. But really overall for me, I'm not a huge fan of the first act, and especially the first 20 to 30 minutes I thought were awful. And I was like, this is just not a great way to start this movie. But once she gets involved with Katie, things get really good, and the movie flows so much better. So the pacing, so the performances were kind of off as well. There's a child actor performance, not from our main characters, that I don't really want to say his name. I'm not that type of person who wants to badmouth a child actor, but it just wasn't a great performance. And I think that whole subplot involving this other child, I didn't feel was that interesting. And I also didn't feel like there's a whole neighbor dog subplot that takes up, I think, the movie way too much. I think it could have been just like a first act problem, but it takes like the first 80% of the movie to get this subplot finished up with. And it didn't need to be in the movie as much as it was. And obviously, this movie can definitely be unintentionally funny. But overall, guys, I think this is going to be a fun thing moving forward for Blumhouse. I do think that this movie, which does allude to making more films, could have a franchise, because we'll see what we'll talk about the box office on Monday, but this potentially has a, and the movie does set up something moving forward in a very realistic and plausible way. So overall, I had a fun time watching M3GAN. Is it a B movie? It definitely is. It's not gonna be one of the best movies of 2023. But is it a fun time in the movie theater? It absolutely was. So overall, I'm gonna give M3GAN a 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to go 70% for M3GAN. I had a fun time watching this movie, shockingly. 70% is where I go. So that's my thoughts on the movie. What are your thoughts on the movie? Leave it down in the comment section. Like the video. Subscribe. More videos are coming soon here on the channel, including a box office breakdown show on Monday. Episode 3 spoiler review of The Bad Batch coming up. More movie reviews are coming out soon, so please subscribe and the bell. I'll see you guys soon.